Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen rips open the doors on my ambulance. Huge mistake. After that, can't remove the charge? Well, I'll just use it then. And after that, am I the jerk for refusing to participate in my boyfriend's family's Thanksgiving tradition? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to interfere with an ambulance. I'll find a way, Reddit boy. I always do. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen rips open the doors on my ambulance. Huge mistake. So this just happened last night and I still can't believe someone would actually do this. I'm 30, male, and I'm a paramedic. I've been in EMS for the past 8 years and I absolutely love my job. Last night, we were dispatched to a 75-year-old woman who had fallen at home. The patient stated that she tripped over her carpet and she hit her head when she fell. We arrived on the scene and noticed that the home was a duplex with our patient's door on the right and her neighbor's door on the left. We made our way into the home and found her lying on the floor. The woman was awake and breathing. We started asking her the standard questions. Are you okay? Does anything hurt? Do you remember the fall? Etc. She stated that she has a pounding headache and that she remembers walking to bed and then waking up on the floor. In my field, that's a pretty big red flag. We noticed that she's got a pretty good lump on the side of her head and a big bruise starting to form already. Noticing the bruise, I asked her if she was on any blood thinners. She said that she was on blood thinners for a previous stroke that she had a few years ago. We urged her to let us take her to the hospital because there was a possibility that the fall could have caused a bleed in her brain and she should go to the hospital to get some scans done. She agrees and we begin to package her up. We applied a C-collar around her neck in case of any C-spine, neck injuries. She denied any neck or back pain, so we lifted her up and placed her on our stair chair. A stair chair is exactly what it sounds like. It's a chair with tracks that we use to carry patients up and down the stairs. As we were getting her out of the house, her neighbor whipped the door open and started yelling about how she couldn't sleep with all the lights and noises outside. The sound of the stair chair apparently woke her up, and she was not happy about that. My lieutenant walked over to her and apologized and said that we were dealing with a medical emergency and that we would be leaving soon enough. The Karen neighbor then noticed that our patient was her neighbor, and that's when she started yelling about something totally different. The entitled neighbor started yelling, "You can't take her to the hospital. I have errands to run tomorrow, and she needs to watch my kids." My lieutenant again reiterated that we were here for a medical emergency and that her health is more important than her errands. The entitled neighbor let out a loud huff and then slammed the door in his face. We thought that was the end of it, but we were wrong. After a few minutes in the back of the ambulance, we told our lieutenant that he could take the engine crew back to the station and that we were going to be heading out in a few minutes. After we checked her vitals, got an IV going, and started giving her IV fluids, my partner got out of the back and went up to the driver's seat. About 5 seconds later, the back doors of my ambulance flew open, and who did I see? The entitled neighbor, of course. Apparently, she needed a few minutes to get dressed before coming outside. I yell at her, "What do you think you're doing?" She yells back, "I told you that she can't go to the hospital because she has to watch my kids tomorrow." She then starts trying to pull the cot out of the ambulance with our patient on it. Luckily, she didn't know how to unlatch the cot and couldn't get her out. Our patient says, "I can't watch your kids tomorrow because I fell and I might be having a stroke." The entitled neighbor yells back at her and says, "You're fine. You don't need to go to the hospital because you're not having a stroke." My partner then hears the commotion and goes to the back of the ambulance. He pulls her off the cot and I slam and lock the doors. You could hear the entitled neighbor was about to become combative. It's important to know that either the police department or the sheriff's department responds to our calls too when it's at night. Because of where we were, it took just a few minutes for the sheriff's department to show up on the scene, but he got there just in time. I couldn't hear much through the door, but I saw the officer get out of his cruiser with his taser drawn. My partner runs back up to the driver's seat and starts heading to the hospital. The last thing I saw through the back windows was the entitled neighbor stomping towards the officer and then her hitting the ground after being tased. Super satisfying to watch. I was talking with my patient and asked what that was all about, and she said that the entitled neighbor will just drop her 3 kids off at her house and leave for several hours at a time with no notice. My patient had no idea that she was supposed to watch the kids at all because, again, the entitled neighbor never even gives her a heads up about these kinds of things. Can't remove the charge? Well, I'll just use it then. In the early 2000s, when I first moved out on my own, I rented from a complex that charged you for assigned parking. It was an upcharge of $25 a month. If you didn't get assigned parking, you would have to fight for a space on the street. My apartment was in the back of the complex, and I was getting over a recent knee and ankle injury, so I opted for paid parking that was relatively close to my front door. My car was a junker, 3 years older than I am, but it ran semi-okay and the heater worked. As a newly minted adult, I was happy to have it. About 3 months into my lease, my car went to the great scrap heap in the sky. I had gotten used to the local transit system and discovered a nearby store would drop off groceries for me. This was long before Walmart and other stores started doing it, so it was cheaper than figuring a month's supplies on the bus. So I opted not to replace the car and utilized the bus pass my work reimbursed me for. I went to my leasing office and told them I no longer needed the space and would you please remove the extra charge from my bill. The manager at the desk was new and had never been asked that before. She promised to look into it and let me know. I was naive and figured it would be gone come next month. Nope, it was still there. I paid all but the parking space and called up the complex. Same girl. She said she was awaiting word from higher-ups and offered me a credit for the charge as a one-time courtesy. I reminded her that I no longer owned a car. I hadn't just changed my mind. I told her that the space had been empty for close to a month now and that I won't be using it. She said she understood, loud and clear, and would get it sorted by next month. 3 days before rent was due, she finally got back to me. Apparently, it was in my lease and couldn't be removed without breaking the lease and signing a new one. Even if I didn't move out, the lease breaking and initiation fees would be charged to me, and my rent would go up to the new current market value. This would be over $1,000, so not an option for someone freshly on their own. I kept the parking space on the lease. 3 weeks later, I was reviewing my lease to get the phone number for maintenance and noticed the clause for the parking space. Essentially, I could park a motorcycle, scooter, car, truck, SUV, or trailer in the space. Gears were turning. For me to be in compliance, I had to have wheels on anything parked in my space. So I went to my local version of Craigslist and found a wheeled container similar to a shipping container. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every cent. The complex offered storage sheds at an upcharge too. Being fresh out of high school, I didn't have much to store. My neighbor, though, did. I threw a lock on the unit and offered it to my neighbor for half the cost of a shed, $35 a month. He was able to move his stuff out of his storage unit, where he was paying over $100 a month, and the container was available 24/7, 365 days a year. He was happy for the arrangement and paid several months in advance. The complex put several tow stickers for "out of compliance" on the trailer, but I called the tow company and faxed them a copy of the lease where it says trailers are allowed. The container was registered with the county as a utility trailer, so there's nothing they could do. They tried to fine me for improper parking, but again, I had proof I was within my rights. They even offered to remove the charge for parking on my lease if I would relocate the container. With what my neighbor was paying, I could cover my water bill every month, so I declined. I stayed 18 months and sold the trailer to my neighbor when I moved out. He had to rent a car to relocate it to his assigned space, but he said it was worth the couple hundred he paid. He ended up saving over $1,000 a year renting from me. Other neighbors even started bringing in their own containers too, even if it meant getting a second space. Sheds were being vacated at such a large volume, the complex tried to give them away at 6 months free. Few took them up on it. The complex amended the new leases to exclude trailers, but could do nothing about those that had already had them in the spot. Instead of moving out and giving notice, renters would reassign their lease to new people so they could be grandfathered into the trailer clause. I drove by the facility 2 years or so after I moved out, going to a friend's house for Thanksgiving. The complex had been sold to a new owner and they changed their name, but wouldn't you know, there were still about a dozen wheeled shipping containers parked in the lot. Am I the jerk for refusing to participate in my boyfriend's family's Thanksgiving tradition? I went to Thanksgiving at my boyfriend's family's house last night. I had met his parents and sister a couple of times, but this was my first time meeting his more extended family. He said they make a whole day of it, so we would be heading over around 10 a.m. When we arrived, there were several men sitting in the living room watching football. My boyfriend introduced me to his brother, brother-in-law, uncles, and some cousins. His dad was also there. There's a cooler in the middle of the room, and my boyfriend grabs a beer and sits down to watch the game. His mom and sister come in to say hi, and his mom says, "Perfect timing. We are just getting going in the kitchen. Come on, let's get you a drink." I go into the kitchen, and there are several women in there. They have Christmas movies on the TV, and most of them are doing some kind of food prep. I grab my drink and go back and sit with my boyfriend. I try to strike up some conversation, but the guys were super into the game. After a while, I take my boyfriend to the side and tell him I feel awkward since I'm not into football and no one is really talking to me. He told me, "Then go hang out in the kitchen. The girls talk up a storm. The family tradition is for the guys to watch football and the ladies hang out in the kitchen and make the meal." I told him I found that extremely wrong and I was not interested in going into the kitchen while the men sat around drinking and watching TV. I ended up just sitting around awkwardly watching them all talk sports until basically dinner was served, at which point they got up, got a plate, and went back to watching TV. I told my boyfriend after that I was upset, and he said I was overreacting. I told him it was awkward as I didn't like sports, but I didn't want to be banished to the kitchen with the women. I told him I didn't really feel like I got to know next to nothing about his family, except that they have this messed up tradition. Am I the jerk? Remember this experience very, very well, because it's most definitely a glimpse of what your future will look like if you stay with your boyfriend. You told him how you felt. He invalidated your feelings and told you to grin and bear it. Is that what you want? Not only does he accept this type of alienation, he expects you to just cluck with the other chickens in the kitchen. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend is very much the jerk, though. His family are not, though, in this case. They were enjoying a tradition that they're comfortable with, despite how ick it might be to myself and to others. Your boyfriend invited you, and it was messed up that he pretty much ditched you to get to know only the women in the family. Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't leave. I would have noted out of there. Not the jerk. I would have cringed so much if I was there. This is disgusting, and all those people trying to justify it and call OP the jerk need to learn a bit of empathy. Imagine being a guest and expected to relegate yourself to the kitchen while half the attendees just hang out doing something the other half are excluded from. Also, I'd love to see all those men who hang out attempt to prepare a dinner and watch the kids while the women sit around and watch their entertainment without lifting a finger. Everyone sucks here, except all those nice women you chose to ignore. Info: is this the first time you met these people? His mom and sister came in and said, "Hi," and his mom says, "Perfect timing. We're just going into the kitchen. Come on, let's get you a drink." While you are correct, this is a wrong tradition, and you don't have to like it, Mom and sister invited you to join them. They sounded happy to meet you. They were trying to include you. You chose not to interact with the women of his family. You're complaining that you didn't get to learn about anybody in the family, but had you gone with mom and sister and met all the other women, they'd have given you the lowdown on everybody. I agree it's a crappy tradition, but this might be deeply ingrained into your boyfriend. Talk to him and make some decision on whether this is something you can live with or if that's something he can live without. Not the jerk. My family is the complete opposite. All us ladies hang out in the living room watching the parades while the men get the food ready. The food would probably come out 10 times better if we were the ones making it, but at least we finally get a day off from our hectic schedules. When a tradition sucks, it's up to you to change it. I'd tell your boyfriend that you won't be going to another Thanksgiving with him next year unless they decide to alternate who does the food prep. It's not fair at all that they expected you to do it, just a bunch of entitled man babies. You're the jerk. You decided not to be in the kitchen only because you thought it was wrong, even though all the women there weren't helping out with the cooking, but were watching Christmas movies, chatting, and drinking instead of watching football, because like you, they don't want to. The men in fact didn't tell you you couldn't sit down and watch football. They just wanted to watch the game and not make small talk with you. Whine, whine, whine. I'll be darned if I'm gonna go in the kitchen because I'm not going to be relegated to that role. Gonna sit in the room where sports is dominant and then get on the internet and whine about not liking sports and not having a nice conversation. You had a couple of choices. You could have gone into the kitchen and made an effort, or you could have gone home. Nope, you get online and whine about it. You're the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I think we should have standardized questionnaires that we fill out before dating someone. Lots of these types of things could really be avoided that way. Am I the jerk for crashing my wife's birthday party and taking her home? My wife turned 30 this week. I'm 26, male. We've always had a strong relationship and I love her so much. My wife has a best friend from childhood, Jimmy, who's 28. I didn't know him that well, but this year we've gotten to know each other and have gotten close. He's my best bud and like an older brother to me in a lot of ways. My wife goes all out for my birthday parties and I love them. She's more of a stoic introvert, so I thought it would be nice to throw her a surprise 30th birthday with just her and me and make it a special event. I wanted to make her a gift she would love. Jimmy's an incredible artist, and for the past 2 months, I've been taking lessons from him. My wife was curious why I was spending so much time away from home with Jimmy, but I made vague excuses because I couldn't tell her I was making a gift for her. She's made a couple comments, but never seemed upset. I told her a week before her birthday that I had made plans with Jimmy. I have a job with flexible hours, so it's not uncommon for me to do it. She wasn't upset or anything. When her birthday came, it was all I could do not to say anything. When she left for work, I put my plan in action. I decorated the place. I brought out the cake. I learned from YouTube and stored it at our friend's house. I got a dozen bouquets of flowers. I got her a few other gifts too. She was supposed to come home at 5:30, but she didn't. I waited hours for her, but she didn't come home. I called Jimmy and he said he hadn't seen her either. I called her and she didn't pick up. I checked her location and she was at a restaurant. I went to the restaurant and she was there with her friends. They were eating a birthday cake and she had presents. I never met these friends of hers before. I think they're from her work. She seemed sad. She wasn't smiling or energetic. I wanted to take her home and show her my gift so that she would be happy. I came over to her and told her she had to come home. We grabbed her things and left. On the Uber back, she didn't say anything. At home, she started crying. She's been sleeping on the couch and she's avoiding me. My wife hasn't talked to Jimmy either. I told my mom and she called me a jerk. I don't know why. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You didn't use the critical piece of surprise party planning here, where you have her at home at a certain time for a good reason. You just made it look like you were blowing her off and she made other plans. You honestly just made it look like you remembered her birthday at the last minute and went overboard to try to make up for it. And instead of apologizing, you forced her to appreciate your thoughtfulness. Not to mention her work friends, who probably already thought OP was a jerk for not making plans for her birthday, so they take her out to cheer her up. And then OP tracks her location, hunts her down in a restaurant, and demands she leave with him in front of all of her friends. So now they're thinking that he's a controlling jerk. Red flag. If I was her, I'd be ashamed and worried my friends were questioning if my husband was mistreating me. Not the jerk. Young man, you've learned a valuable lesson of being a husband. Never go above and beyond. She's just gonna find something to get mad about when you do. Keep it simple. That's what they like, because the truth is, they're simple people themselves. Back in '02, I bought my wife a new car with all the upgrades the dealership offered. What did I get in return? This sure looks complicated. Do we really need all this extra stuff? Few years later, I bought her a new washer and dryer. What did I get in return? This sure looks complicated. What was wrong with the old ones? This is so much harder to use than the old ones. Eventually, I learned to keep it simple, and ever since then, I've never had to deal with her being ungrateful over something I went above and beyond on again. If you're lucky enough to have a wife who actually appreciates the extra effort, consider yourself lucky, and let me know where you found her, because I've been looking to trade mine in for a long time. No, but seriously, let me know. God bless y'all and be safe out there. Hope y'all had a happy and safe Thanksgiving and wishing you a Merry Christmas. He is the reason for the season. Bill. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. When will people learn that real life is never like the sitcoms? And again, half our viewers probably don't even remember what sitcoms were. My table caused me to have an emotional breakdown and tried to get me fired because of a genuine misunderstanding. On Thanksgiving Day, the restaurant I work at was open for lunch. I had a family of 7 come in. At first, everything was fine and I was making small talk, getting everyone's drinks. It was their 4 kids that were around my age, the grandpa and the dad and the wife. When the dad and the wife arrived, the dad immediately ordered 2 beers. The dad's face was very red and scarred looking, and he seemed upset and in pain. As I was walking away, I heard a man say that he had fallen and hurt himself. This is where I messed up. I assumed it was the dad who was hurt and genuinely wanted to help him. When I went back to the table and went up to him, I asked if he needed anything like water or ibuprofen or anything else that I could get him. He was immediately very angry and asked what I was talking about. I was very surprised and scared and stammered that I thought he was hurt or not feeling well and I wanted to help him. He then said, "Are you kidding me right now?" very angrily. The entire family was staring at us in stunned silence. His wife awkwardly made a joke that he had just gotten out of surgery for a shark attack. I apologized immediately and said I was not trying to offend him and I was very sorry. After that, the family ordered more drinks and talked. I made sure to take the best care of them and try to smooth things over. I got them multiple rounds of drinks. The dad had about 6 or 7. Entrees, to-go food, kept their water full, packed their food to go, and got them all desserts. At some point, the dad went to the bathroom and the grandpa asked why I offered his son ibuprofen. I explained I had heard someone had fallen and wanted to help. The grandpa told me that he was the one who had fallen and the dad was going through skin cancer treatment. His wife chimed in and told me that he was very insecure about it. I of course felt awful and tried to apologize and tell them I never wanted to offend him. Unfortunately, they just stared at me until I left the table. The kids who were my age were being friendly and I tried my best to smile and do what I could. At the end, the wife asked for the bill. It came out to $510. They put $540 in cash. I made the $30 in change and brought it back to the table. The last hour of work, I was trying so hard to not cry. They finally leave 40 minutes after we closed, and they had left the $30 as a tip. As I'm picking up their table, my boss comes over to me and asks why they were calling him, saying that I had offended them by offering the man pain medicine. Thank goodness my boss is a good guy and understood it was a misunderstanding, and they were being jerks about it. About 10 minutes later, when we were all about to leave for the day, they called my boss again. They told him to take the $30 tip back from me and that they wanted my boss to donate it to skin cancer research. I had already been crying at this point, but was just so shocked and humiliated. I gave him the $30 and I left. I spent the next hour in my car crying and disassociating. I felt so stupid and awful and hurt. I skipped out on Thanksgiving dinner with my boyfriend and his family because my eyes and face were so swollen and I felt very depressed and worthless. To that man and his family, I'm very sorry you are dealing with cancer and that I ruined your meal. Taking out that anger and pain on a service worker, trying their best on a holiday, and ruining their day as well was very wrong and uncalled for. I hope you remember this day and realize you were wrong for acting like that. I hope you can one day feel thankfulness and forgiveness instead of hate and malice. I'm so sorry they were terrible, and your boss shouldn't have even mentioned that they called, much less taken your tip back. However, you should never offer any kind of medicine to anyone, even if they ask for it. The liability here is huge. I only say this so you know for next time. Am I the jerk for confronting my cousin in front of the whole family for stealing from my house? I, late 30s male, hosted Thanksgiving at my house. My husband, 50s male, and I have a nephew who's 16 who stays with us part-time. He has a bedroom on the 2nd floor and my bedroom is on the 3rd floor. It's a suite with a sitting room, living room, 2 walk-in closets in the bedroom. When you walk up the stairs, you walk into the sitting room, then there's a small living room, then the bedroom, and then you go into either one of the closets from the bedroom. I have a nephew who is 5 and is exhibiting signs of autism. His mother, 27 female, is my second cousin. She came along with her 2 brothers and their mother, so everyone's taking turns entertaining my 5-year-old nephew because he requires a little bit of extra attention. At one point, I leave the living room on the 1st floor and I see him on the stairs, playing with a toy car and what looks like a watch. I look closer and I see the watch belongs to my husband, and it's a pretty expensive watch to be smashing into a toy car. I asked my nephew where he got it, and he said, "Uncle's, 29, male, backpack." I asked him if he could show me. He leads me to the piano room where everyone put their jackets and whatnot, and my one cousin's backpack. My nephew opens the front portion of the backpack and I see some other jewelry in there. I was really upset, so I grabbed his backpack and grabbed my nephew and went into the living room. I dumped the backpack out onto one of the coffee tables and asked my cousin what the heck was going on with the fact that 2 of my husband's watches and a necklace that belonged to my mother were in his bag. I dumped out the bag, and the nephew who lives with me, his Switch was in there. The cousin whose backpack it was freaked out, saying clearly my autistic nephew put stuff in there that he had taken from upstairs. I know that's not the case because he's not tall enough to get to the dresser where the jewelry was, nor do I think he would even wander that far away from everyone else. Am I the jerk for confronting him in front of everyone? Edit 1. Cut some things out for the character limit. So when I dumped the bag out, the cousin who stole the stuff was white as a sheet. His sister later asked me how on earth I would do that in front of everyone. The man who stole from me, his mother said that what he did was wrong, but I don't need to point it out to everyone because everyone's going to be looking at him when he comes over to their house. That's why I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. For those asking, I don't think he's an addict, but in all fairness, I didn't think he was a thief either. I don't think he's a career criminal because he didn't take the expensive watches, just the mid-grade ones. The necklace also was just gold-plated, so probably only worth $100 or $200. The point is, there were much more expensive things he could have taken out of the drawers he was in. I'm second cousins with the thief's mother. I'm just Uncle OP to the little guy because it's a lot easier than second cousin twice removed OP. Am I the jerk for not getting McDonald's for my friend's kid? Yesterday, my friend Ryan had to work. I was off work, so he asked if I'd mind watching his kids for the day since they have this week off school. Now, for the most part, his kids, Andy, who's 10, and Mary, who's 7, are good kids, and I've hung out with them all before. So I said sure. I was told by Ryan that Andy will only eat chicken tenders, mac and cheese, hot dogs, and peanut butter and jelly. This is gonna be good. We watched some movies, played Wii, and I took them out to eat for lunch. Then Andy, who's 10, kept telling me, "We need to go to McDonald's to get my tenders." I said that the restaurant we were going to had really good chicken tenders. They do. Besides, I didn't want to be one of those people that brings outside food to a restaurant. Well, we get to the restaurant, and Andy keeps saying that he doesn't want to eat there. He wants McDonald's. Long story short, Mary had a burger and ate it all. I ordered Andy some tenders, and he refused to try them. So I took the leftovers with us to give to Ryan. When Ryan picked them up later, Andy told him that he was hungry and hadn't eaten since before lunch. We had some snacks. Ryan asked me why I didn't feed them lunch. I said I took them out to eat, and Mary said, "Yup, I had a burger." Andy told him that he didn't like the tenders at that restaurant, so didn't eat them, and I wouldn't get him McDonald's, so he didn't eat lunch. Ryan said he told me Andy is a picky eater, and I should have just gotten McDonald's for him instead of forcing him to starve. I shouldn't be trying to force his kid to eat stuff. On one hand, I see Ryan's point, but at the same time, he can't honestly expect people to drive all over getting different food or have to eat McDonald's whenever they watch his kids. Am I the jerk? ETA, since multiple people have said I should have made him a PB&J. I couldn't make him a PB&J. Well, I technically could, but earlier in the day I offered to make him PB&J for a snack, but he only likes grape jelly, and I had strawberry. I don't have mac and cheese because I'm lactose intolerant. You're the jerk. It really sounds like this kid may have some sort of disability. All 8 of my babies have struggled with disabilities, and one thing I've learned over the years is that when your child literally needs a certain specific food, you as a parent need to get it for them as they depend on you. There were times where I was literally attacked for not having the right chicken nuggets for my babies, but eventually I learned that it wasn't their fault. They weren't able to control themselves. It is true that 4 of them have been taken from me, but I still have my other 4, and when they need certain specific foods, Mama does whatever she needs to do to get it for them. I'm not ashamed of the things I've had to do to put Wendy's on the table. You try being a single mom with 8 kids and deadbeat fathers who refuse to support you because they think you're crazy and the courts won't do anything. Please don't take to heart everyone here acting like they know it all about parenting. Most of them probably don't even have kids themselves. I know I'm a good mom, and I always give it my all. I will get my babies back. Mark my words. Am I the jerk for calling my mom to come pick me up early at a party? A few weeks ago, I, 17 female, along with my friend, Martiza, 17 female, went to a Halloween party. We both got the jab, so we were all good there. On the way there, Martiza informed me that she had changed her mind about leaving the party at our agreed time and was more than likely going to spend the night and just skip class the next day. She told me this as we were in her car. I was going to be the designated driver on the way back. I would have been fine with this if she hadn't waited to tell me the unilateral change of plans 5 minutes before we pulled up to the house, so I was already a little peeved when we went into the party. I knew I was either going to have to pay $121 Halloween rates to get home or call my mom and have her come pick me up. I chose my mom. One, because I knew she would be upset if I paid over $100 for a 45-minute car ride, and two, my parents have always made it very clear to me that I can call them whenever I need them and they won't hold it against me. Anyways, we got to the party around 8:30, but around 9, a lot more people started coming in. Some I recognized because I do dual enrollment at my community college. Unfortunately, one of the people that came in was someone I had French with. I tried avoiding him, but he saw me anyway and proceeded to follow me around the party. Martisa had disappeared off the face of the planet like 2 minutes after we stepped foot into the door, so I was all alone. Mark is 24. I have no interest in him. He's 24, which is pretty gross and old in my opinion. I don't want to date someone 7 years older than me. I'm also only into other girls, so yeah, I've told him this multiple times, but he doesn't care. I get away from Mark, and around 9:30 I call my mom and ask her to come pick me up. I explain to her what's going on. I leave out Mark on purpose. I text Martisa and tell her that I'm leaving. She doesn't respond, so I go looking for her. I spend like 40 minutes looking because I started on the top floor, but she was in the kitchen doing shots and says whatever when I tell her I'm heading out. I go wait outside, and Mark manages to find me while I'm waiting. I keep trying to walk away from him, but he continues to follow me. I see my mom's car pulling up at this point. She must have recognized my costume because she got from the end of the driveway, out the car, and pulled Mark by his collar away from me in like 2 seconds. Lo and behold, Martisa's mom is also there because Martisa had told her she was spending the night at my house. I did not know she lied. Her mom goes inside and starts yelling her name looking for her. Martisa comes out with her mom looking mortified. I'm already in the car with my mom. They leave in Martisa's car. So now Martisa is punished and had her phone and car taken away. She can only talk to people in school. She's mad at me and blames me for snitching. She's also upset that I didn't get punished and still have my privileges. When she talks to me, she's really passive-aggressive. She ignores me a lot too. So, am I the jerk?
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.